So anyway, are we good?
Yeah.
So I was asking you if you're getting more and more the notion that the 10 dimensions are simultaneous. And what I mean is that they are all one system that functions as one in the moment, every single moment within our lives. So it's complex because the linear mind is accustomed to see things linearly. And when it does things linearly, it transforms it into different frames of awareness. And the mind may not perceive that they are not linear, that they are simultaneous, they are holographic, they are synchronized, and there is the moment of life. So the 10 dimension represents like a computer chip, and that's the way we can really understand it now. It's like a computer chip that holds everything. There is everything and exists within the moment itself. And self-contains not only the whole past, not only of our life, but the entire human race from the beginning of time. Self-contains the entire evolutionary projection that had existed as in the universe, and self-contains the moment, the present moment. So it is a fantastic thing. So it's good to allow the mind to recognize that constantly, because as I said, the mind then innocently goes back in time to the modality in which we live, and everything may innocently go back again into a linear form. So it's good to remember constantly that all things are simultaneous, that your entire existence is self-contained in the moment. It's no longer self-contained in the future. Yeah, it's not that you're going to get there. You are already. As a matter of fact, the entire perfection of your being is ever present now, as for you to experience now, which is a divine thing. It's a lot, no? So anyway, any questions about our last session?
I
Where
have
are
one.
we today? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
One.
Yeah.
It's about what you just said, how we're coming into a place where there's perfection all the time, every moment, and that when we come into line with this perfection, I wrote it down, any kind of energy that was ruling us, when we get to unity, and you said it happens when you get to unity, or when you recognize unity, that what was in disharmony or imperfections and events in your life come to view. Is that what you said? When you're in unity?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, is that as we become more and more in the presence of unity, many aspects of our life that they were in somehow part of our consciousness, and they were somehow holding us in some degree, either something that you did wrong, something that happened in your life, something that occurred that you were not really happy, whatever, it will show up again. And I will just show up again. You will see it from a different perspective, not from the perspective that you saw it before, as something that occur in relation to you, but something you will see it from the whole perspective of consciousness. And when you see it from the whole perspective of consciousness, you will be able to understand it completely as an event. You will understand the event, you understand the circumstances, you understand your experience of it, and you will be able to release all of it because you understand how it came into being, what was the circumstances, the reactions, the particular form in which it was interpreted, and you will see it as a natural unfolding of that particular expression of consciousness, the consciousness that we're coming from, the linear consciousness, in which everything occur out of circumstances of cause and effect. And that when we experience it, we experience inside of that system. Now we get to experience inside of a different system. And the different system, it gave us a perspective to everything. And then from that perspective to everything, we repair the very form in which the mind created those experience, either to be emotional experience, either to be mental experience that produced a lot of problems within ourselves, or experience that we consider in the physical, in the actual physical existence, to be detrimental for our well-being or our sense of happiness. So all things become repaired because you get to be in a new field of consciousness that no longer functions inside of a linear perspective, but is inside of a holistic, holographic perspective that understands all things. So the mind realigns itself when you get to experience that. Yes, it may happen or may not happen. Some of us may be able to immediately go to the new consciousness, as I'm doing now, and be able just to become free and begin to travel in the new experience, with the new experience. Some of us may be able to, because of whatever our emotional state, our mental state, or our physical state, we may experience events within ourselves. They surface within our consciousness. And then when they surface within our consciousness, we look at them. And when we look at them, you will see them, as I said, with the eyes of consciousness, with the eyes of love, and with the eyes of whole physical understanding, which is a universal form of ever-present consciousness. Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing. So I don't know if it answered that question, or
Well,
it needs to be
is it
a little
something
larger.
that happens instantaneously within a moment? The scene is it what you see in your life, that is it a process, or is it something you just see immediately and you see the wholeness of it also?
All right, it can take those two. It can take those two forms, which you just said, and I think that the actual dimension of beauty is going to be wonderful for us as we go in now, because you will be able to understand it more. But we are in a holographic consciousness. What that means is that instead of experiencing things sequentially, we are experiencing all simultaneously. So what that means, it may be just a frame that, or one, it's like a light in the consciousness, and then the light on the consciousness is like a movie, but not a movie that is frame by frame, a movie that is completely already complete in its entire showing. So you get to see it in the panoramic vision of your mind. So you may understand everything in one instant instead of understanding linearly. Or, as I said, you may understand everything linearly, in which you will then see the circumstances, the events, what it brought it into it. And then by doing that as well, you will be able to heal a lot of aspects of your being, because you will be able to see them from a whole perspective instead of a personal perspective. Because remember, in the linear consciousness, everything, just about everything was personal. Yeah, everything occurs on me. Everything is about me in that world. And when you see it from the whole perspective, it is about you as well, but it's about everything as well. So that is the holographic imprint of wholeness. Yeah. So this frame that I tell you, there is a holographic frame, is actually the frame that occur in the harmonic conversions that transform the entire linear consciousness in one frame presence into a new consciousness. Just one instant.
So there's only one frame.
There is only one frame. There is only one frame. Yes. The frame of life, which is constantly changing, move with all things. And we are the central aspect of that frame. The self within us is that also, that it's not separated from it. In the linear perspective, you're always separated from between your awareness and yourself. In the new consciousness, you are the center of awareness of everything. So it is complex to talk about it, because you no longer are separated from your experience. And that's kind of a spooky, because you get to be in the presence of your whole field of consciousness. That's what we call to be in the presence of God. And you are a God in that sense, that you are get to understand everything, feel everything, see everything. And remember that our human experience and the linear perspective, we never have that. We only have those situations in certain moments in which certain people became enlightened. Enlightenment means that for a period of time, maybe 1 minute or 1 second, maybe an hour, it got to be experienced what they call the higher degrees of consciousness. And that's the way that all religions got created. That's the way that Christianity came into being. That's the reason all the philosophies, everything came into being in that instant. The difference that for the first time, this is not one instant. Apart from being the instant, it's also the whole field. So we are inside of the whole field of enlightenment. We are the enlightened being, experience the consciousness of enlightenment, but it's complex to use that word because it's not in a specialty of consciousness, enlightenment. It's actually the natural state of ourselves. We are the image and the likeness, experience ourselves as the light. Yeah, it's different. So when we understand clearly, it can occur in one frame, it can occur in an hour, but it doesn't matter because what you're learning is that you are in the constant state of communion with that frame. And that's what we call the knowledge of eternal time. And that's what we call the eternal moment. It is called the eternal moment because the frame self-contains the whole field. And it's the frame of life, in which life is no longer a sort of an external perception of your being, but it's actually who you are. You are life, experiencing yourself as life or as alive. Yeah, the self is not separated from life. Yeah. So, yeah. Are we good? Yeah. How was that? It's okay?
That was very good. Thank you.
All right. So now I would like to take you up just a little bit just to the back into the blog and then come back to be with you. Yes. So now I go and share a screen again. Yeah. Sharing a screen and share again. And here we are now together. Yeah. Beautiful. And now we are in, let me see, how am I getting here now? I cannot get down from here. I'm in trouble. Oh, I go into Zoom meetings? No, I am already.
No, you're fine. You just have to navigate the bar there on the side.
Yeah, but I cannot descend. Oh, yeah. So here we are. We are in the sixth dimension, the dimension of beauty, right here. Yes. And we did last time the dimension of balance. Yeah. And now in the dimension of beauty. And the second title or subtitle of the dimension of beauty is the illumination of life. And to understand really the nature of this dimension, it's important to understand that, let me see, take you all the way down here, at the dimension of beauty. I would like you just to be with you just for a second, okay? The dimension of beauty. There is something that you have read that I asked you many times to read, that it was this paper about light, that it was with the physics.com, remember? And it's one phrase in physics.com that I would like to read within you. And remember that I keep telling you, you have to go back to this paper because it bypasses. The linear consciousness is a little complex because when we are in that modality, it bypasses everything. It just focalizes on certain things, but sometimes it fails to see what is really being said or what is really important. So in here is that from physics.com, without light, there will be no sight. The visual ability of humans and other animals is the result of the complex interaction of light, eye, and brain. We are able to see because light from an object, it's a reflection, can move through space and reach our eyes. Once light reaches our eyes, signals are sent to our brain, and our brain deciphers the information in order to detect the appearance, location, and movement of the objects we are sighting at. The whole process is as complex as it is, will not be possible if it were not for the presence of light. Without light, there will be no sight. So the complexity in this phrase is a very, very heady thing. But he says that once light reaches our eyes, signals are sent to our brain. So what we need to understand is what we see is what the brain tells us that we see. Yes, you understand that we are not seeing what it is. We see it what the brain tells us what it is. So then, our brain deciphers. And that means that in the linear consciousness, we all saw whatever we were projecting to the very thing that we were seeing. Yes? Should I say that again? In the linear consciousness, we were always projecting the very thing that we were seeing, thinking that we were seeing what we were seeing, without not knowing that we were the ones who were determining what it is that we were seeing, because our brain was giving you the very information from which we were categorizing experience, acknowledging what we were seeing. So then, the whole process is complex as it is. As complex as it is, it will not be possible if we're not to be the presence of light. Without light, there will be no sight. Okay, returning again to it, that if we were to acknowledge that we are in the new consciousness, what does it mean? Remember, I keep saying to you, what does it mean, the new consciousness? Just a word, or is something that is completely different? And if it is the new consciousness, which it is, the difference is we are in another realm, in the realms of light. We always were in the realms of light, but we were functioning inside of a system that the realms of light were modulated inside of the dualistic experience. So everything was seen from one perspective and the other every single moment. And we were constantly reacting to certain precepts of the mind without not knowing that that was a collective and personification of consciousness, that it was not really ours, that we were really actually being thought by the actual consciousness that we were experiencing. Yes, when we hear a word, immediately, when you hear Republicans, you hear Democrats. When you hear ugly, you feel this. When you feel gay, you feel straight. When you feel, every single word has a corresponding duality, and we think that it's us, that we are deciphering what we're hearing, but in reality, we were constantly reacting to what we're hearing, going from one thing to another, trying to figure out where we were inside of the scale of that particular discussion, of that particular perception, of that particular projection. So when the new consciousness came into being, it meant that we were in the presence of light for the first time. Presence became the illumination of all of things. And we were inside of the universe, inside of all aspects of distance, quantum entanglement, simultaneous in the present moment. And we have, for the first time, inside of the new mind, a whole mind, not a mind that perceives, but the mind there is, the whole perception of that which is perceiving. Not a mind that observes and perceives, but a mind with the whole perception of that which is perceiving. That's the freaking, that's the reason it took 30 years for us to be able to begin to understand what that was. Because remember, the event happened 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, but we couldn't understand it because our mind was so programmed to really constantly react to everything. So when we say, and the object says, our brain deciphers the information. Yes, it's what I mean, that our brain listens to something, and then sometimes it's not even necessarily what we're listening, it's the way that our mind reacts of the very words that we are listening to. And then we come out forward with something that seems to be very real to us, but it really wasn't necessarily what is being said. It's what the mind interpreted that it has been said. That was the linear mind. Yeah? It's okay what I'm saying? Do you need to ask questions about this? It's simple and it's complex, that we were being thought by our evolutionary consciousness because we were one. We were not individual. We were holistically unfolding into the completion of consciousness. So we were all inside of the same soup without not even knowing. And most of us interpreted the soup to be our actual perception. It wasn't our actual perception. Our perception always existed, but it was always entrapped in the system. And I hope it doesn't sound like something negative that I'm saying, because it was the very schooling, the school in which we completed the voyage, but it was a necessity of the voyage itself. We needed, through trial and error, disseminate all the whole scenario, that in the moment that it begins completed, in the instant of the harmonic conversions, as it connected with the universal alignment that also encompasses the universe, it became one instantaneous instant. And with the linear modality, the quantum mechanics aspect of consciousness became quantum entanglement. And then, because we are in quantum entanglement, we can understand quantum mechanics. Without quantum entanglement, it was impossible to understand quantum mechanics. We have the whole list, the whole perspective. It would be impossible to understand the linear nature of our mind, because it's a mystery, because it's mysterious. Each being, it was called the ego. It swears that it is what it is, and it feels what it is, and you can, and that's the way it is. Yeah, you can see in this particular moment in our consciousness that is still fighting a lot in our daily world. What's happened with many people who believe that the elections were rigged, and they will swear to you that it's rigged. They will, this is what the conspiracy theories are about, that the mind entertains a system in which it gives its life to believe something that believes that never was real, but it was very real inside of that structure. At the same time, that all that structure that is appearing in front of us is actually dissolving itself, because it's a form of madness, innocent madness, that we were all experiencing, constantly reacting to things, as I said, that it was not necessarily part of our consciousness. So this phrase is a very, very important phrase, because it brings us to the importance of light. So when you read it, you just said, oh, actually what it's saying, that whatever you see is actually light, and the light is determining what you see. But it doesn't go deeper into expressing that this occurs constantly in our lives. And whatever we see is not just only the act of seeing, it's the act, it's an act that incorporates our emotional state, our mental state, because the mind is constantly going, trying to figure it out what it is. And then our physiological state, because remember that for every single thought that our minds expresses is a neurological feeling that occurs through the entire muscles of the body. So our body always has been the recorder of that which we have called our perception, and the recorder of that we have called our emotions. So it's complex in that sense, because we recreated ourselves inside of a system that constantly, innocently was bombarding us without not knowing. So returning to the new consciousness. The new consciousness is what it means is that we are inside of the light for the first time. We are the light of the world. It means that the light of what we call enlightenment is actually the light of our beings as it reflects inside of our mind, the brain expanding, and the brain interpreting everything from the perspective of the light instead of interpreting everything from the relative state of light and darkness. So we are no longer in cause and effect. We are in the light itself, yes? And so I'll come back to this in a little second, but then are you with me until now? What this phrase means in the simplistic state, we are able to see because light from an object can move through space and reach our eyes. Okay, that's good. I get it. That's true. Okay, all right. Once light reaches our eyes, signals are sent to our brain, and our brain deciphers the information in order to detect the appearance. Okay, that's good. Location and movement of the objects we are sighting in. So this is a very surface scientific form of analyzing that, but that's not the way it occurs. The real reality is that whatever we see is what we are becoming. Inside of the linear consciousness, we were constantly becoming that we were seeing. Yeah, because the light, the brain was constantly transforming us to the way we saw. So anyway, beauty then is that in this particular symbol, we decided to put the symbol of Buddha. It's in my bedroom here. It's a very lovely, wonderful frame. You know, remember the Buddha is now the honoring and fulfillment that has become present as the new consciousness. The Buddha have held the memory of the very presence that we are. So the Buddha, like Christ, like Muhammad, like Messiah, like Krishna, they're all free now. Finally have fulfilled the very memory that they have held forever in time to remind us of the moment that we are going to experience when we're returning to the light. Yeah. So it's a beautiful image. Yeah, you see, the Buddha is not with the eyes open. It's really actually inside of a soul field. Yeah, that was the deity. The deities are usually not in the present moment, eating a hamburger and drinking a Coca-Cola. Usually they are inside of the reality of the mind, holding the vision of one day you're going to get that, right? So remember that every single image that you consider to be spiritual is a reflection of you, reminded you of the place that you are going to return to when you're going to experience when you finally come present with the light. But when you become present with the light, you will not be in this state anymore. Yeah, you don't become the Buddha, you become yourself, because the Buddha is a remembrance of yourself. It's not higher or lower than you. It's the remembrance of yourself. Christ is the remembrance of myself, because I am Christ. Christ is me. Muhammad is the remembrance of myself. You know, all the deities, all the philosophers talk about it. Everything that it was projected through the linear progress in order to keep us in the light until the moment that we were united were all reflections of the very fulfillment that we are now in the presence of life. This is a big deal, because the only way I could honor Buddha is by being the Buddha. Yeah, but without the meditational process, a little bit. Yeah, this is hard when I'm telling you, because it's not about the meditation, it's about the moment of life. Yeah, the instant. Remember that I said to you, balance the physical moment. We are living the physical moment of existence with all things. So if we go into contemplation, it's lovely, but then that is a way that we unite our worlds, if you want to, but we can just learn more and more to be constantly in the presence of the meditation, which is actually the presence of the moment itself, in which the moment ceases to be meditative and it becomes the creative experience of the magical adventure of life. The moment ceases to be the meditative state and it becomes the fantastic magical experience and creative reality of the moment of life. This is the first time that the consciousness can entertain that thought. Remember, the farther that the consciousness could have gone in the realms of linear consciousness was to become the Buddha, or to go into the dimension of samadhi, or to, you know, not to be disrespected because it was beautiful. The Buddha is beautiful, yeah? It's self-contained, itself, the kingdom. The kingdom means the opening of all the ventricles of the brain. The crown represents the fulfillment of the consciousness, yes? Remember that I was saying that in the linear perspective, the crown represents the kingdoms and the kings and parading with all the treasures and diamonds. But in reality, all that meant in that imagery was the universal experience of light, in which the kingdom becomes the moment of your life. Not the place that you're going to be or the place that you're going to hold, but the existence of your own life. So here we are. Oh, I'm sorry that one, I apologize. I got to go here. So then now, this we created, here we are now. This is the new Buddha, a little bit. We have to bring it out a little bit because not still in the meditative state, because it's an essence, it's the essence of beauty. okay? And the whole crown and the hair and everything is really actually the realm of consciousness. You know, consciousness, all the ventricles of the brain becoming open now, fulfilled in the new consciousness, the light, you know, really actually becoming present. The third eye, of course, becoming now the oneness that exists within the Trinity, you know, consciousness, unity, and crown here, you know, and here, balance, beauty, and love, of course. But what I wanted to tell you is that the consciousness that we are experiencing now is no longer the consciousness that innocently self-contain us in a specific system of awareness, but it's the consciousness that exists inside of the whole field of awareness. So it is a new mind. It's the mind of beauty. And the mind of beauty is extraordinary. Let me just go back in here for a moment to take you in it. The mind of beauty is actually the mind of love, which we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But I want to return now to the to be together, to talk together, to be from the graphics into our togetherness in the Zoom. So excuse me, I'm going to put a stop sharing. Yeah, I'm doing it right here, and here we are together again. So beauty is a fantastic divine thing, because it's the muse of life, the muse of life. And remember that beauty was one of the most desirable things that existed within our human evolutionary self, because beauty shows up as a magical thing. It used to show up sometimes when we have moments of perfect moments of seeing beautiful things, flowers, nature, a baby being born, falling in love in the fluidity of the love that takes over you, and you, for a period of time, get free from yourself, and you love another person just as much or even more than yourself, and you get free from your consciousness, because you are finally, momentarily or for a long time, free from the entrapment of your own self-interest or our own self-containment. Yeah, remember that's where we are. In the evolutionary nature, each of us were self-contained as ourselves. It used to call the ego. And it was complex because each of us made our own world. We swear that what we were experiencing was what it was, and so forth. And we didn't know that was just a program. We didn't know at all. So we took it for serious. Yeah, some of us give their life, die because of that. But it was just part of the whole dream, of the whole beauty, of the whole process, of the whole human, of the whole engagement. Remember, we created that because we wanted to really know experientially the real nature of our existence. And it was a lot. You know, so now we are in the real nature of our existence. So beauty is a muse, it's ever present. And it is actually the natural consciousness of the new field in which we are, in which everything is beautiful. And it's difficult to talk about that because then you think, just put the rose-colored glass and everything is beautiful. No, it means that for the first time, everything has meaning. It's not objectified by our awareness. And everything is looking to us instead of looking to it as well. Yes. And everything has the feeling of the person who made it. Yes. That you get to experience it. You may like it or may not like it. Like it and like it disappear. You may gravitate or not gravitate to, but you will perceive it as carrying the memory of the person who made everything. Yeah. And everything is relative in the moment of life to fulfill you. Even if it innocently in the moment may seem disagreeable, it's something for you to understand that it has been part of your consciousness, part of your humanity, that you are erasing, releasing, and transforming by seeing it under the new light. And the new light that you see in it is the light that transforms all things into their natural nature. The natural nature being beauty, love, consciousness, presence, consciousness, light, balance, all the attributes that exist within the 10 dimensions is the whole field in which everything functions inside of its natural state. The ego gets absorbed by the self, because now the self and the ego, whatever was the ego, gets loved by the self. The ego within ourselves gets transmuted into the self and the new consciousness. And then the self is really actually the one who is the transformer, because the consciousness doesn't exist without the awareness perception of your being. Yes? The consciousness as the word doesn't mean anything if you are not the receiver, the recipient, the perceiver, or the recipient of that particular frequency. Yes? Consciousness does not exist without you, because you are the very consciousness that we call the self, that we call God, that we call the universe, that we call enlightenment. We are everything now. So it is only complex that is so grandiose in his interpretation and so enormous inside of that grandiosity that it makes the human self that we have been a very puny character trying to get together to have a beer and be able to go to bed in the moment to get up and go to work next day. So in a completely different world, you know what I mean? But what is important to understand that this grandiosity of this extraordinary degree of being that is the self of our us, we needed to begin to become aware of it, because it represents the blessing of the unfolding of our human senses, becoming more and more aware to the light itself. So the 5 senses within our being are becoming more and more and more present with the light. So what you see is what you're becoming. You will hear the music of everything, because you will begin to see the sounds of nature. Everything filters inside it differently. The food will start tasting different. Taste will be different. The smell will be different. Touching will be different, because you will touch everything from the perspective of being you, not just only an objectified. Yes? And 2 senses are added to beauty, to the dimension of beauty. The sense that is the feeling of life. We get to feel, we are beginning to feel life. Remember that life was objectified in our evolutionary consciousness, but now we are the feeling of life itself. And the feeling of life itself is really fantastic, because you don't have to do anything other than just being in the presence of life, because we are, but also it has a feeling, it has a substance. It's extraordinary. Yeah. So we get to have a 6th sense, which is the feeling of life, and we get to have a 7th sense, which is the sense of self. We get, instead of having the sense of our personal egoic sense of who we are, or the relative self, we get to have the sense of our true nature, the beauty of the nature that we are. We get to be in our natural state. Just think about it. Your natural state have existed forever from the beginning of time, and have transmuted itself as human forever, forever, and ever, have existed in the different civilizations, have existed in the different religions, have existed in the Atlantis that they went under the sea. But it's all now together, your soul, the human soul, the image and the likeness that have made the perfect expression of your being, have become reinstated with our sense of self, in which you get to be the human, you get to be the divine, and you get to be yourself for the first time. That is a lot. That is a fantastic. That's the beauty of the recovering. That's our natural state. Remember, in the garden, we were in the natural state. That's what we always were pursuing, natural state. And then in the garden, we left the natural state and we enter the relative modality of consciousness to understand what the natural state was. Now we are in it, we understand it completely. My natural state is very simple, but also very, very profound, because encompasses all things, is all things, and that encompassing of all things, being all things, is what we have called God, is the wholeness within wholeness, that always existed within ourselves, internally and externally. And for the first time, we are in the presence of it. And for the first time, we are simultaneous with everything else, manifesting the new world. Can you imagine? We are manifesting the new world, a new world that is completely different, because everyone is equal. Everybody is perfect. Everybody is divine. Everybody is happy. Everybody is healthy. Everybody is beautiful. Everybody is creative. Everyone is partaking of the oneness of beauty that exists within the whole field of consciousness. No more gradations of education, of beauty, or modalities. Everyone awakening to that divine nature within ourselves, which is the very happiness that we talk about in the last Zoom, balance. Remember happiness, the fulfillment of life? And I said, you can never be happy if you are not fulfilled. And fulfillment means that you get to experience yourself completely, that you get to really be creative, that you have all the things that you need that are given by life itself, that you feel totally supported and impelled and experience the creativity of life as a continuity of existence. No longer being depressed and then being completely, no longer feeling completely exalted and all of a sudden going down into the boonies, trying to get yourself up and everything. All that inside of the moment of continuity, because the mind understands that for the first time is one with all things. And the present moment of physical life. The present moment of physical life. This is a very important thing. Because remember, the spiritual plane, it didn't exist in the physical plane. It was created outside of it a little bit, because the physical body was like, it was considered to be a little bit madhouse. They said, still, at least all the madhouse, the place that they was called samsara, yeah? But it wasn't. It was really actually a beautiful world always, that it was constantly, the evolutionary world trying to figure it out, what happiness is, what is the most exalted form of being able to experience life, how we can someone become fully creative, how you get to experience the maximum of your experience in the planet Earth. All the things were things that we have cultivated and evolved in our linear modality. It wasn't just only nightmares, yes? All things that you will know it in your family and the people who surround you, and your remembrance of your grandparents, and even in the people who now are trying to figure it out, who was my ancestry and what it come from, and blah, 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 blah. Not knowing yet that the ancestry was in the beginning of the Big Bang from one perspective, or in the Garden of Eden. Those are the two modalities that we humans have. Either the evolutionary moment in which we all evolve forever as humans, returning to our natural state, or in the garden, when we were perfect in the garden, we decided to leave it, to experience all aspects of possibilities, and then return to the garden, but this time with the whole experience of everything as creative beings for the first time, in the physical world as well, manifesting the new world that mirrors the universal. In the universal world, because of the harmonic convergence, the whole universe has become one, celebrating the glory of God for the first time. Yes? Because before, even in the other dimensions, God was still separated from us. I don't know if I should tell you briefly that. I don't know how much time do I have. Yes, maybe I'll tell you a little story about me, but I don't want to tell stories about me because I consider that what it gets interpreted as something that you have to experience, and it's not good. But I need to tell you this because it will help you. When there was a time in my life, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know really the time, that I was really, really disheartened, because I knew that my function was going to be to really perceive the new consciousness when it came into being. And I was constantly in preparation of it, because I understood that for the consciousness to really exist, it needed to be perceived. If it's something that's not perceived, it doesn't exist. So in the moment of the harmonic convergence, I knew that I was my whole life has been a preparation. So when it happens, I was conscious of what that meant, that I was be able to understand it, even if it was for a moment. So it would not just be something like I throw out or comes and then I don't know it. I needed to know it. And I was very disheartened. And I was taking a bath and living in the palaces in Los Angeles. And my school had been closed for many reasons that I don't want to tell you about it. But I mean, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to use the time to tell you that. But what it happens is that I have in that time a connection with my higher self. Remember, in 20 years ago or 30 years ago, the higher self was a big deal, more than now. We all had our higher self, and we were constantly really in presence with the higher self. So I was taking a bath, and I said to my higher self, okay, I am really disheartened. I need assistance because everything goes like a yo-yo, like Groundhog Day. You get to a moment that thinks that everything is going to show up and you're going to be able to enter that place, and then you go around in spiral and then you return back into the same place, and you got to go back and start the same again over and over and over again. And then in my bathtub, I hear a voice that says to me, Cristian, you don't understand what you're teaching. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're teaching balance, and you're teaching balance is simultaneity, and everything exists at the same time, and everything is. And at the same time, you're linearly complaining to me that something is happening that you are really not experiencing the very simultaneity that you are. And I said, well, you're right. I feel like I really don't know what to do with this. So anyway, the voice that I speak to me, it says to me, I live in a dimension that is at the edge of the universe. And it's right at the edge in a place called Nevada, my last name. And it exists in that dimension, and I am like you, even though we are much more advanced than you are, because we have a different state of awareness, a different state of awareness is not the word, a different state of consciousness, if you may. We understand everything much more closer than you do, but we are totally relative with you, because in the universal existence, everything is simultaneous. So whatever you are experiencing on the planet Earth was always experienced in these 7 super universes at the edge of the universe. So for you, it may seem to be like a big deal, but for us, a little detail is extraordinarily painful, much more than yours, because we get to experience everything with much more larger degree of experience. So the voice said to me, if you would like it, we can unite. And since you call me the higher self, we can unite, and I will teach you will assist you to understand many things that in the human existence is kind of complex, because there's specialty that exists in consciousness and so forth. And you will teach me levels of experiential physicality that they don't exist in my dimension, because we don't experience physicality the way you experience it. So I said, oh, fantastic, let's do it. I said, absolutely, instantaneously. So I got it. It was just something that it occurs within me. I don't talk to me about the situation because it can be interpreted as weird. It wasn't weird to me. I understood that it was essential to my being. And then when that experience happened, to acknowledge, I said, okay, I'm going to buy a wedding ring, and I'm going to get married to that. Marry means I'm going to get united to that being that is part of me. And the being says to me, the only thing about our union, that you won't have me around. It will be simultaneous with your life, and it will be simultaneous with my life. I don't exist outside anymore. Your higher self doesn't exist outside of you. This is not about for us really having to dream inside of this exchange, inside of the physical world. It's something that is simultaneous with your life. So we don't have anything to do other than the agreement that we created. So I got married that place. So through the time, sometimes I forget that I am united, even though I'm totally married to it. So I have been helped continuously to understand things, express things that I always consider myself not to be very qualified for it. But I understood that, like all of us, that I have a lot of help. So in the moment of the harmonic convergence, my unification, the unification of the physical world in the linear process of consciousness, as it corresponded with the universal, the alignment, it was also the union of all the 7 super universes that it got created through the time, from the beginning of time, as the universe. And in this particular in this super universes, existing as one, in every aspect of the universe, will experience the same degree of innocently separation and confusion that we will experience as humans. Everything was a mystery, and a larger degree of union, but it's still a mystery. So when the harmonic conversions took place, it's not only us humans that became connected as one in the reality of human, the universal, the 7 super universes, also reconnected with the grand, what is called the grand universe. The grand universe is the whole field, became one for the first time. So we are one, not only in our human experience, but our universal experience, because everything became simultaneously, atomically one within the eternal moment. Yes, so this is a story that I wanted to tell you a little bit. I never wanted to tell you because it is a phenomenal story inside of myself, but it doesn't matter. It was enormously helpful for me to understand that the conversions, the universal conversion, was not only a physical reality as we know it in the planet, it was also a universal reality inside of the creation as it connected to a larger creation in which we are one. Yes. So that is the experience of oneness existing within the realms of unity. And I say that the unity is now immune because it fulfills the very nature of our human lives, but also it fulfills the very nature of the original imprint of wholeness that existed within our ancient soul, that exists within each of us as humans. And it's absolutely beautiful. Yes. So beauty is the light of the world. It's the very light that we are, consciousness, seeing itself as the source of its light for the first time. Instead of the image and the likeness being separated from the source, the image and the likeness is one with the light as a conscious recognition of its actual natural existence. So we are the light of the world. That's what we call God. Yeah, the light of the world has 3 different forms of expression. Beauty has 3 forms of expression, which is the light of the world. It has one, which is consciousness. The mind being whole inside of a whole spectrum of consciousness, and which no longer is separated inside of its own wholeness. The mind comprehends the perfection of itself, its beauty, its essence, its nature, all of it. So it is mental in that sense because it's the whole mind. That's what we call the whole mind of life. The first triad, remember? The first triad, light, consciousness, and unity, or crown, consciousness, and unity, becoming one. That's what it is. So beauty has an aspect of it, which is our natural mind. It's a celestial mind, it's a human mind, and it's also an essential mind, because it is the eternal, because it encompasses all things. It's not divided innocently between the universal and the human. It's actually the whole thing, universal, human, and essential, essence, self, united at the center. And that is what makes up to be synchronized with life itself. We are, for the first time, synchronized with life itself. Beauty has a second comprehension of its nature, which is the energy that we call love. Yes, and remember that in our evolutionary nature, love was an aspect of ourselves. Some of us were more loving, the other was some of us we thought loving is the person that you marry. Some think of the love is something that you feel, the people you have affinity from it. But in reality, we are made of love. The very energy that we call life is the sensation of love. Remember that I said that we have a 6th sense now, and the 6th sense is the feeling of life. The feeling of life is love. It's very complex for us humans because love never has been that. Yeah, love is something special, something that we feel or not feel. Some of us are very sad in our life because we felt like we haven't been loved enough, that we have not experienced love, the love has betrayed us, and so blah, blah, blah. We have 1,000 stories, all stories of mental illness, emotional illness, or physical illness, in some degree, are based in some misunderstanding of love itself. We didn't get to experience love in the way that we wanted to. We didn't know that we were love itself, that the very life that it is life is the sensation of life. And the energy, the electrical energy that we call our life, our physical sensation is love as well. And I said it's complex because we're just learning to what that is in ourselves. How does it feel to be in the presence of love as yourself 24/7? Yeah. How do you get out on the street and talk to somebody inside of their own reality and yet being in the presence of love? How, we are learning to be able to really be in this field, which is all embracing, and we are really actually becoming this field, the field of love. Yeah. So the first one is the mind, the beauty, the beautiful mind that understand is all thing that is not separated inside of its whole dome, inside of its whole field of consciousness, holistic. But even holistic is kind of strange because it's really actually complete inside. It's simultaneous, it's synchronized, it's quantum entanglement. Yeah, quantum entanglement is a good word for us to spend time with it because the physicists, they don't know what to do with it, but they comprehend that it's simultaneous with all things. If something moves, everything is already moving. So it is a field that is foreign to ourselves because we have manifested everything inside of the linear field. And quantum entanglement is the absence of linear, is the simultaneity of all things. So this is the mind that I'm telling you that we are part of it, the beautiful mind, the beautiful heart that we are, there is love. And we are learning, all of us, to experience and feel it, because we don't even have to share it, and we're feeling it. Love is the feeling of life. Can you imagine love being the feeling of life? It's a lot. Love being the feeling of life. Life as the feeling, and the feeling of life is love. Yeah. And if you feel life, you're always good, because life is the energy of all things, right? When anybody in any degree it feels that it's not right together in the mental or the emotional and the physical, it's that something is not synchronized with life. Yeah? Whenever we feel emotionally, mentally clear, oh my God, we are outside of the prison, so to speak, and we are in life. Life is beautiful. I'm going to the beach, I'm running here, I'm going to do that, I love you, let's have dinner, let's enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. When you feel love for something, a flower, yourself, your child, something is something that envelops you and allows you to forget yourself momentarily, which is a good thing inside of the linear consciousness. But love now is really actually yourself. You get to be in love all the time. And then the third aspect of beauty is the physical world. The physical world is actually the Garden of Eden. It always has been the Garden of Eden. But inside of our mind was the memory of a special place, yes, that we call the kingdom of heaven. Christ had called it the kingdom of heaven. It's actually the garden itself, as we experience in the planet Earth, the mother itself. So the garden now, inside of the realms of beauty, is awakening our senses. We are smelling, we are tasting, we are seeing, we are hearing, we are feeling. We are in an overall electrical, unified field, magical field of beauty. It's a lot for that, because our senses are being very dull, innocently inside of the linear process. Yeah, dull a little bit. Remember that I was telling you a little bit zombie, like we awaken every once in a while, but then we go back to sleep. And that was all right, because that's the way we can support the energy. But now we are inside of this energy, and we have to learn to live with it, which is exquisitely beautiful. And it's physical. It always has been physical. But the physical, since it could not live that, it got interpreted as being a dimension, a less desirable dimension inside of the linear process. The physical was a less desirable dimension, that it could not exist in the same pair with the spiritual or the celestial. Yes, we created different worlds to be able to live the physical world and to be able to exist inside of a world that always promised that we'll return to it, but it always was ahead in the future, always in the future. Yeah, the second coming in the future, the second coming of Buddha in the future, everything. The Messiah cannot come yet because the Messiah cannot be born of a woman, because a woman inside of the story carried the sin of the story of the garden. Therefore, Messiah never came. And when it came, it really got, you know the story, but it was all innocent. It was a projection created inside of the linear process of mind that constantly was trying to become free of its own self-incarcerated self, but it had no way out until the moment of the completion itself. And in the process of going out, it created extraordinary amounts of beauty. At the same time, they created an enormous amount of pain and suffering that created depth of feeling, yeah, awaken us from the senses. Yeah, so we went from a very, from the Darwinian story, from a very primitive and unfolding of human that eventually go in for 4 legs, became 2-legged, and then he begins to create subtleties of awareness and perceptions, and created civilizations like the Egyptians that for the first time decided that God was one and created these pyramids in which the priests 1 time a year can really connect with the universal ray of light, which is an alignment of the heavens, and therefore we bring consciousness and unity to the people who were below. Yeah, and then the Greeks, yeah, discovering all aspects of beauty. Can you imagine? The Greeks were extraordinarily involved when we were Greeks, because we were all aware that. We sometimes, again, we can talk about the Greeks being the Greeks, but in reality it's us. Yeah, the story of us, the Greeks, when we were Greeks, we were fascinated with all the different stories about civilizations and beauty, and we understood that the movement was beauty because proportions, we created classic proportions. We understood, extraordinary levels of reality and human thought and physics in the time of our forefathers, the Greeks. Yeah. Then the Romans, when we were Romans, we created a lot of celebration. We were bringing it into the physical world. Yeah. And then in the last millennia, we became more and more physical. Yeah. But at the same time, we needed to be, because remember that the physical world, what was going to be the world that will unite us back with all the worlds. Yeah, because the physical alignment of the physical universe and the consciousness of our being evolving to a state in which the brain opened to occupy the physical moment as a moment that encompasses all things and take us away from the dream of time. Yes, we remember the dream of time is that the moment was like a pendulum that never really touches. We're always going like this, never. For moments, we'll connect it and we sense ourselves, and then we go back again into it. This is the first time that we are in the present moment with everything. So the 3 aspects of beauty has become fulfilled for us. The beauty of the mind, the beauty of the feeling, the beauty of the physical world. And the beauty of the physical world is our return to the garden. We are in the presence of the garden. But the garden is not just only the plants and the flowers. The garden is our body. The body is our love. It's everything. It's like the garden encompasses love and encompasses consciousness. Consciousness encompasses love in the garden. Love encompasses consciousness in the garden. Again, that trinity, the inseparable trinity, that they are one, but there are 3 aspects in our human understanding that allows to really the linear mind to comprehend the totality that correspond to the entanglement. Because the linear and the holographic are simultaneous. Yeah, linear is the ABC, the A to Z of our word that we use the word, and then the simultaneity will be the completion of everything in which you speak the totality of the beauty of the word. But the totality of the beauty is made of all those sounds that it took thousands and thousands of years for us to develop, to express the feeling, the thought, and the physical experience of our human self. Yeah. Remember that in time, a word like love took a long time to appear in the consciousness of man. Yes, because before we were feeling it, of course, the maternal love and the instinctual love was always present, but it never was a conceptual understanding of the feeling of love. So the words, as we evolve, and the mind as it expands, and the feeling as it became more complete, completed the scenario, and here we are in the dimension of beauty, which is exquisite, exquisite, exquisite. And that's the reason it's called the muse of life. It's whenever time that you experience moments of ecstasy, you are in the presence of beauty. Yeah. And there are three forms of ecstasy that beauty has. Conceptual, when you hear a poem, when you hear words, or when you hear a song that resonate in your mind, and the mind connects through the words to the feeling of your heart, produces ecstasy. Whenever you are in love for anything, in whatever degree it is, you are inside of the field of life and you experience ecstasy. Wherever you are in the physical world, connecting to everything, to nature, you're back into ecstasy, because that's the way it is. The study of unity and motion as you practice, the whole idea, connecting the planes, connecting your center, connecting the whole movement of your mind, your feeling, and your action, you're learning to understand ecstasy. Yeah, ecstasy is your natural state of being. Yeah, and it has three aspects: happiness. Yeah, remember that I said to you, happiness, the presence of yourself, because ecstasy is really you. And then the third one, which is really actually the connection to everything, the universal connection to everything, in which you are simplistically simple, because you live in the daily day of your daily life, but you simultaneously, you are interconnected with the universal. So at any one moment, the spoon in your kitchen can become an object in the universe, traveling in the universe, and you can get an idea about, oh, I see this spoon, or whatever. You know what I mean? Every single moment, all the worlds are interrelated as one, and they are exquisite because they appear to your senses in every single instant, either to an object in the moment, either by a thought when you get up in the morning from bed, or by reading something or hearing something, or awakening inside of you. Because the new world is coming from inside of ourselves. It shows us externally only because we are perceiving it to make it real, but it's actually coming from within. Everything is come from within instead of from without. That synchronicity means whatever you are emoting, it gets encountered by life itself. You are the master of your own life, the master of your feelings. Everything that you want, you already have. All you have to do is to really know that you wanted it, and that it's already given. And that's it. You have it. When it will show up, it will show up either immediately because you have it in front of you already to hit you like a pie in the face, or the circumstances will bring it to you, and you will see, oh, I see, I'm just noticing all the event, the dance of life is created for the fulfillment of the experience of human, which it was the divine creation of God. We were created and the image and the likeness of God. Yes, the image and the likeness. We are a holographic imprint of the divine manifestation of life itself. There is nothing more beautiful than life itself, because that's the way we come present into life, to really experience life in its fullness, to experience happiness, to experience the mind, which is your soul and God, to experience beauty, and to experience your connection to life itself as a wonderful adventure in which you are always energetic, because the moment itself is 100% energetic. Yeah, it's 100% because it encompasses all things. It doesn't have 10 degrees of energy or whatever. Only us go fluctuate. And it's okay, because it's good to recognize too that our nervous system is not accustomed to be able to experience all that at once. Yeah, remember that in the spiritual traditions, people said, when people in the ashrams and everything, that you are like, consciousness was like electrical bulb. And if you instead of 10, you use 50, you're burn out. But it wasn't true. In reality, we are the 100%. But now we are not going to burn out, because the divine, which is actually ourselves, it understand in life itself, being 100% benign, that each of us is unfolding inside of our own knowledge, understanding, beauty, experience. So we're getting moment by moment the totality of what that is. And it's up to us how much we can withstand, because if you go for too much, sometimes it will take over your health itself, because it's too much. Yeah, you need rest, you need support, you have to take care of the human part of you. Yes, you have to take care of the human. You know what it means to take the human part of you, because the human part of you, it needs things, it needs nourishment, it needs rest, it needs beauty, it needs fulfillment, it needs happiness, it needs love, all the things that you already have. But if you are not conscious of it, they don't exist. They are concepts. Yeah, that's the human. Then the universal part of you is fantastic, because it's magical, and there are things that you already have but you have not experienced yet. Yeah, your entire voyage of life is ever present. You are not going to get there 100 years from now. You have it right now. But what happens is that you are the master. Decide, okay, I'm ready to experience that much, and you do it according to your own modulation, because it's all here. Yeah, you have it all, and you don't need to add nothing that it creates stress. Yeah, so you get to experience that. Plus, you get to experience the third part of you, not just only the human, which is all the things that you need, not just only the universal, which is all the things that you already are, but you get to experience the God within you. There is nothing more beautiful than the God within you. In the dimension of beauty, remember that they have 13 names that correspond to the dimensions, and the name of the consciousness that correspond to the sixth dimension is the dimension of eternal existence. I don't know if you remember. Number 6, if you look at it, the dimension of eternal existence. The dimension of eternal existence are places within ourselves now, humans, that we're becoming present with eternity itself. And it's something very, very, very difficult to talk about words, because it is a state in which we are in this total state of recollection of our soulful state of being, but also in total state of recollection to the God self that we are. And it's like nothing other, that you cannot describe it. It's something that you are. But when you enter that moment, for whatever circumstances, sometimes once a day, sometimes whenever, it doesn't matter, because it's not about the end of itself, because that's silly. But when you enter that moment, you will recognize it. Oh, I am in the dimension of eternal existence. It's my soul becoming present from the realms of time and becoming present with the ultimate reality, the immanent reality, in which are one with God. And in that one, it's not a meditative state. It's not a place that exists inside of you. It's a place that exists in here. The dimension of eternal existence, it doesn't exist inside of your own recollection. It existed inside of the moment of life that unites all things, including this one, the one that I'm talking to you right now, this moment that we are. So you will experience with open eyes, and you will see, oh, I see, I get to be in the awake state. I'm not in the deity state. Yeah, the deity state, the deity in which you fall in, you go into yourself in order to be able to be with all the worlds and be able to become momentarily free from this one, because it seems to be so chaotic sometimes. But remember that the real world that we're talking about, and what I mean by the real world, the dimension of eternal existence, the eternal moment that you become present, it exists in this moment, in the actual physical moment. The physical moment. It means that you're awakening state. That's what presence means, that you're awakened in the present moment of life, right now, in unifying the whole physical world, which in the past has been a little bit diffused, into the reality itself, because the universe is 100% physical. Yeah, 100% physical, the universe. Everything is physical. Only in our consciousness, physical became a word that became confused because life and death and so forth. Yeah. So anyway, let me see where I am in dimensions of beauty. Is there anything that I need to tell you about the dimensions of beauty? The dimensions of beauty are beautiful. It's just everything is beautiful, but it's not beautiful only because you see it. It's beautiful because you know it, and it's beautiful because you are it. You feel it, you see it, and you are it. It's fantastic. It's divine. So let me see. Anything that I need that I wanted to tell you. Anything that you would like to share about the things that we just said. I said many things. I don't want to confuse you with my story about because I believe that each of us is that too. Each of us have the counterpart in ourselves, but the counterpart is really the part of you who is already completed, and as it relates to the human part of you that is coming into correspondence with our completion. Do you know what I mean by that? Do I need to expand that? Yeah, I don't know if I'm confusing you. There is a part of you that is already present, that you're completed. All the aspects of consciousness are completed. But there is another part of you that has been haunted a little bit by the memory of you, yeah, the human memory of you. And then there is another part of you, which is the present moment, trying to make sense of the memory of you and the part that is completed. They're all coming together in one field, in one place. And for each of us, it's different, you know, how that comes together. But we are all coming into that higher self. What was called the higher self is really actually the memory of your perfected being that always had been present, but we didn't have access. You didn't have access yet, but now you do. So the higher self is actually the lower self of you. You unite them to you. Yet the higher, the lower, united to you. You are the embodiment of the free. Yeah. The higher self is not the one that is going to take over, because the higher self only exists in the union of all things. It doesn't exist in one dimension outside of the other one. Nothing to be discarded in unity. Nothing can ever be discarded in the realms of unity, yeah? Because that's what unity is. Unity is the sum total of all things existing as one, which is immanent reality, the reality of life. Unity is the free, the unity, consciousness, and ground or light, one, yeah? The Trinity, 3 dimensions are one. That's the way I experience it, one. And the oneness is unity. But it's not just the unity of unity, it's the unity of the free. Am I confusing you about it? Are you clear? No, I'm not confusing. No? Yeah, because one dimension is called unity, but the dimension of unity is simultaneous with the dimension of consciousness and the dimensions of ground or light. But they are inseparable. Remember that I said they are free aspects, that they are inseparable one. And that has been the mystery within the church. The church never knew what to do with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, because they could never understand completely that the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit is actually the Christ as it lives as the moment of life. Not the Christ in the cross or in heaven waiting with the Father for everybody else to come in, but the Christ as it exists in the moment of life. That is the Trinity. Yeah, everyone gets to be the beloved. You get to be the beloved, and then in the act of being the beloved, you get to be the Christ. You get to love the Christ by being the Christ. You get to love the Buddha by being the Buddha. And Buddha surrender itself inside of you, and then it becomes fulfilled because it becomes free from having to hold the memory of your perfection. All the deities have to hold the memory of your perfection forever. Can you imagine? It was a big job. All the goddesses and everyone trying to remind you forever that here you are. So anyway, they become free now. You are free. You are the deity, and you love them. That's the reason you honor and fulfillment. Every time you say a deity, oh, fantastic, it's wonderful. You know, I have this, I bought this deity myself here, you know, that I love them. That is the Buddha here in my bedroom. And I really loved it because it represents the beauty of the person who made it. And the wonderful thing about people who make deities is that always reflect the love that they are. They think that they are the deity, they are expressing, but actually they're expressing the love that they feel, the devotion. Yeah. And one day I was looking at this deity. I got out of my bed, and the deity is going like this, you know, and then I look at it and I said, oh, it's saying hello to me. I mean, it's really, instead of me saying this to the deity is saying this to me. And I said, oh, I got it. That was it. That was the circle. It wasn't that I was worshiping the deity. It's that the deity was worshiping me. And in the moment that I completed the circle, I understood how lovely it was in my bedroom. I love it, as always, even more, because it's the reflection of my own circle of love. It's not the reflection of what I'm going to be. It's just a natural centralization of love itself as the moment of my life. So that's what the deities are. You are the deity of everything that it is deity. So anyway,
Sean,
yes.
I would like to share.
Carolina, yeah, hold on a second. I haven't seen you. Where are you?
I'm
You are
here.
not in the screen.
I am. I see
lost my
myself.
Oh, how wonderful. Yeah, go ahead. I was looking for you all the time, and I
Well,
said,
I was a little bit late. I apologize. I was lying down and I went to sleep.
oh, how
And,
wonderful.
and I
That's
woke
great.
up, it was like 10 after. So
Wow.
I apologize for being late. But I have something to share that fits right into this. It's so extraordinary for me. And I was thinking when you were talking about how precious each of these our lives are now as we come into these awarenesses that we are starting to come into. And I had been, I'm emotional thinking about this. I think it happened like first like a couple days ago. And you know, I've been married with my husband Ralph for over 50 years. We've been talking to each other, you know. And yesterday or the day before, he was talking and I was listening to him. It was like, I realized that all the time before, I was listening to myself, listening to him. It was like, I was directly listening to what he said. And it was exactly what you've been talking about, is that this veil disappeared. And I realized how beautiful it was to listen to him without my already knowing what he was gonna say or whatever, you know, that was like gone. And I thought, wow, this is so cool, because now I have the rest of my time to listen to not only to him, but to everybody, and let them say and to hear, you know, rather than me already knowing. It's like this thing, it's incredible. And when it first happened, I understood the very first time that it happened, but then, and it's only been a couple days, but now it's like, wow, I can hardly wait to hear what he has to say.
I love it.
So anyway, I know that all fits into this, and I feel that it's very a very tender and precious time for us all now, as we begin each in our own specific way to see this thing opening up. And it can be just in one tiny little thing or one gentle little thing, but it's a very beautiful, beautiful time. And Christian, today it was extraordinary, your words to us. I mean, they're just so beautiful. And I know that we all took them in to our hearts. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love you. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful that we are all coming together in this communion, if you may, communion of with life itself, being present. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. I love it. So I don't know what to say. It's wonderful. I don't want to leave you, but it's time 4:30 now, and I don't want to take you in 4:30. Yeah, 4:30. But anyway, let me see, where are we now? We're going to do next time, we're going to do the dimension of self, which is the 7th dimension. And I would like to, well, I'll take you next time. I was going to take you back into the blog, but I'll take you next time because it's good to be with you right now here. But the next one is going to be the dimension of self, which I'm very, very excited, because when we finish the self, whole nature, infinite regeneration, and foundation paradise, we will be inside of the whole field together with the larger perspective. And then inside of the whole field, I think we will be able to really, if we want to, understand many, many, many things that each of us will bring forward experientially and creatively in the moment as the new world. It's beautiful, very beautiful. All right, wonderful. I say goodbye.
Ah, Christian.
I mean, darling, how lovely to see you. I'm so delighted.